everyone, it's me, Dr. Steve, and I've got a special invitation for you if you'll be in Las Vegas for the Bitcoin conference. Now, I'm hosting an exclusive welcome dinner there on May 27th called the Golden Age Gathering. It'll be an incredible night with courageous conversation and a live Q&A session. You even get a signed copy of my best-selling book over here. Best part, if you're a Courageous Patriots Club member at the gold level, your ticket's already free. Space is super limited, so head on over to goldenagesummit.net/viva-liberty, or just click on the link below and reserve your seat today. I'll see you there.
I'll die.
No. Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
The Democrats' civil war just exploded. 2 Israeli diplomats were gunned down last night outside of the Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. The victims have been identified as 30-year-old Yoren Lachinsky and 26-year-old Sarah Milgram. Lachinsky served as a research assistant while Milgram coordinated visits and missions to Israel. The suspected shooter has been identified by authorities as Elias Rodriguez, a 31-year-old from Chicago who was observed pacing back and forth outside the museum Wednesday night. The victims were leaving an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum when the suspect, Rodriguez, approached their group and opened fire. He was detained by event security, and as you heard at the beginning there, he chanted out, "Free Palestine." Now, I do think there are 2 major dynamics converging here in this horrible shooting. We're seeing 2 distinctively Democrat dynamics, an internal dynamic and an external dynamic coming together here that promises to absolutely decimate once and for all the Democrat Party. First, in terms of the internal dynamic, these shootings represent a massive escalation in the ongoing Democrat civil war between pro-Palestinian progressives on the one side and pro-Israeli liberals on the other, that ignited here in the United States after the October 7th Hamas attack and the subsequent Gaza offensive by Israeli forces. And almost immediately, 2 factions formed within the Democrat Party. You had the hard left pro-Palestinian wing that took over universities, particularly Columbia, but also inordinately influenced left-wing media coverage. And you had the pro-Israeli liberals who basically had all the money and professional influence. So you had a number of law students blacklisted by law firms after the students signed statements criticizing Israel and the Israeli-Hamas war. A number of job offers were rescinded, and even some universities were told by prominent law firms that they weren't even going to consider hiring their graduates anymore unless the university officials reined in the pro-Palestinian activism on their campuses. And then we started to see explicitly the Democrat Party fracture over this. We saw the president of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, a hardline Democrat, get on MSNBC and accuse them of having Hamas write their scripts for them for their evening news programs. And then we saw a number of prominent Jewish Democrats leaving the party, like billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Ackman. Ackman was a major donor to the Democrats. The Civil War caused him to basically just defect and get fully on board with Trump, again, largely because of the rabid anti-Semitism that he was seeing inside the Democrat Party. Barry Weiss left, Alan Dershowitz. And as if that weren't bad enough, we saw Muslim mayors in Michigan from the cities of Hamtramck and Dearborn, all Democrats, come out and endorse Trump as part of their retaliation against a Democrat Party that they perceived as too pro-Israeli. We already saw that actually during the Democrat primaries, in the Michigan primaries. Biden actually lost Dearborn. This is, of course, when Biden was still on the ticket, but he had to go through the primary process in 2024, and he lost. He lost a region that had voted for him with 70% of the vote back in 2020. He lost Dearborn in the Democrat primaries by a 3-1 protest vote. So already during the Democrat primaries in 2024, we could see that the civil war that broke out inside their party was a lose-lose situation. Pro-Israelis saw the party as too pro-Palestinian, and pro-Palestinians saw the party as too pro-Israeli. In fact, James Carville made the argument a few months before the election that were the Democrats to go on to lose, you could blame that loss on the Israeli-Hamas conflict, precisely because that of the civil war that it caused within the party. So if the Democrat Party is already a powder keg by virtue of the civil war, what happened last night in the gunning down of these two Israeli diplomats, I believe they were a married couple, young married couple. What happened in the gunning down of these two Israeli diplomats in the name of freeing Palestine, make no mistake, this is a match being lit right around this powder keg. This is only going to further exasperate the tensions between these two factions, and we're already seeing these tensions boil to the surface. Check this out.
Congresswoman Omar,
Can
I get your reaction to the shooting that happened in D.C. last night?
I'm going to go for now.
I'm going to go for now, Mark. Couldn't even say condolences for the family.
Yeah, so, I mean, make no mistake, every Jewish Democrat just heard that. Every single Jewish Democrat just witnessed with their own eyes and ears Ilhan Omar refused to condemn that shooting, to even utter a single empathetic syllable. And many are going to reconsider whether or not they want to be a part of the same party as her. So that's the first dynamic in all of this. The Civil War in the Democrat Party just exploded. But it's the second dynamic, the external dynamic in what happened last night, that may be the most consequential of them all. I want to give a huge shout out to a brand new product from a longtime sponsor of this channel, and that's SleepX from Black Forest Supplements. Now, if you have a hard time getting to sleep at night, this is an absolute game changer. Here's Dr. Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist and tenured professor at Stanford University, recently revealing what he calls his favorite sleep cocktail.
My favorite sleep cocktail, based on really good, solid, peer-reviewed science, is magnesium threonate and something called apigenin, which is basically a derivative of chamomile. Those two things work really well. They essentially shut down the forebrain thinking, anticipating part of your brain, allow you to drift off into sleep really well.
Oh, I need that all day then, if you could shut that down.
Theanine is the third thing in the cocktail.
Isn't theanine, that is also a nootropic?
So theanine also turns on what's called the GABA system. It's like an inhibitory neurotransmitter, and it helps suppress anxiety and kind of turn off thinking. It helps you make the transition into sleep.
Let me write all this
Sure
stuff
thing.
down, because I think I do need this.
These are a game changer. I'll be
Okay.
amazed if it doesn't help.
Black Forest has created a supplement that contains all of these ingredients and more. SleepX takes advantage of the latest cutting-edge science to help you not only fall asleep, but stay asleep naturally. Forget about destroying your ability to fall asleep with melatonin or using Big Pharma's dangerous and addictive sleeping pills. Fall asleep naturally with this amazing sleep cocktail. This stuff always sells out, so don't wait. Click on that link below right now and take advantage of this launch day deal, since they said it's never going to be this cheap ever again. Click on that link below right now and experience the best sleep of your life. What we saw last night was yet the latest escalation in the far left's widely recognized turn towards violence and terror as legitimate political expression. Now, we talked about this most recently with the Comey 8647 saga. Rutgers University just released a survey that found that support for political violence has surged on the political left. 55% of left-leaning respondents said it would be at least somewhat justifiable to assassinate President Trump. You heard that right, 55%. So the Rutgers study is calling this growing phenomenon assassination culture. In other words, they found that there is a growing acceptance of using lethal violence in our politics, particularly among the woke far left. And the reason for that is rather simple. There's a twisted logic to all of this. If you believe that your sense of right and wrong is ultimate, that there is no possibility of an alternative moral viewpoint on any issue, which is what wokeness essentially is. It's a radical perspectivalism that refuses to allow any dissent. Dissent is heresy. Dissent is blasphemy. If you believe that, if you believe that your moral stance is absolute, then inevitably there are going to be those within your movement who believe that the evil, the blasphemy, the heresy that dissents from your moral stance is proportionately absolute. So this is why the far left has defined their political enemies as absolute evil, right? Hitler, fascists, Nazis. And bottom line, here's where the rubber hits the road. If the evil you oppose is absolute, then the means by which you oppose it becomes comparably absolute. Do you catch the logic there? If you've convinced yourself that you are opposing an evil that knows no bounds, then the means by which you oppose it will comparably know no bounds as well. Another word for this is simply fundamentalism. We are dealing with a far left fundamentalism that has become extremely dangerous. This is why the left is so prone to violence and why they're so fond of actually promoting those who engage in violence on behalf of left-wing causes. Our good friend Jack Posobiec tweeted this out, quote, as leftist street assassinations now make their way to D.C., remember that CNN has promoted Luigi Mangione fandom. Caitlin Collins shared his crowdfund link. AOC and Liz Warren called it a warning to others. And Taylor Lorenz said the killing made her feel joy. Here's Mike Cernovich. Far left-wing violence is the norm. Dozens died during the BLM riots. Some were burned alive. The right isn't perfect, but it supports social order. There's no utopia on man's earth. You get Luigi or you get MAGA. And that is, as far as I'm concerned, that's the bullseye. This latter observation is key in terms of the fallout, the wider fallout from this Democrat civil war and why so many are leaving the Democrat Party. Historian Larry Schweikert has been saying this now for some time. The Democrats are increasingly being perceived as a party that hates us. The Democrats hate America. They hate patriotism and patriotic Americans. They hate border security. They hate manufacturing and industry. They hate fossil fuels. They hate fertility and reproduction. They hate our unique culture, customs, traditions. They hate our faith, disparaging it as white Christian nationalism. The Democrats hate us. And as bad as the Republicans might be, and they certainly are bad, they certainly are dysfunctional. We talked about why that is. But as bad as the Republicans may be, at the very least, unlike Democrats, they don't want to kill you. And that message is coming through loud and clear. In fact, Larry made the observation just the other day, obviously before the D.C. shooting, that these messages are coming through so loud and clear that every single targeted group has gotten the message, for the exception of Jews. They're the last holdouts. Jews as a voting constituency still voted 2-1 for Kamala. And you have to wonder whether they could possibly continue to do that as this Democrat civil war escalates. So what we saw last night is a reminder that there are two dynamics at play here, an internal dynamic civil war and an external dynamic assassination culture that are both effectively destroying and eroding the Democrat Party. An internal dynamic of civil war from within and an external dynamic where more and more people are realizing the Democrats really do hate us and want to hurt us. Both these dynamics converged together last night, and they are going to only further erode whatever life the Democrat Party still barely clings on to.